Hello to one at Growth Hacking and Outbound Marketing. Today, I'm super happy to have Vinay Patankar from Process Street. Thank you for being here, Vinay.
Everyone, excited to be here.
Thank you. Vinay, from Process Street, what does Process Street and what benefits everyone?
Sure. So Process Street, we're a SaaS product, and essentially what we do is we do superpowered checklists. So if you have a checklist of something that you do in your business that's repetitive work, so for example, every time a new customer comes in, you have a set of things that you have to do. Every time you make an update to your website or list a new product on your e-commerce store, post a blog post, you have a checklist of a set of tasks that maybe you or various people in your team are responsible for. So that's the kind of core concept of the product, but then we're super powered. So within those checklists, you can make them conditional. So depending on if the client's an enterprise client or an SMB client, you can have different tasks, or if the client wants WordPress or if they want Shopify, you can have different tasks. You can do handoffs between your team. You can automate a bunch of stuff between various systems. So we integrate with all the other apps like Salesforce and HubSpot and MailChimp and QuickBooks. So you can automatically generate invoices or send contracts or push leads between different people and do all sorts of really kind of powerful workflow automation-y stuff.
Woohoo, man. That sounds amazing. That's so much work. Vinay, what's your background?
So my background is I'm from Australia originally. I was the youngest Cisco engineer in Australia when I was 16, so I worked in IT when I was young, studied finance, and then actually worked as a recruiter, recruiting developers or engineers for the investment banks in Sydney. So that was still pretty young and kind of made some good money to be able to essentially launch my own company, take a few risks. So the first company I started was an e-commerce store in Australia back in 2012, before it was cool. And ran that for a bit and sold it. And then I was running a marketing agency, actually doing lead gen for consumer finance. So driving leads for like credit cards for Citigroup and mortgages for Wells Fargo and stuff like that. And then it was kind of through running that business that grew to about a 20-person company. And we were a distributed team, so people working all over the place, had some VAs working for us. And I was really looking for a lightweight workflow management product to help me systemize that business. And especially because we had a team in the Philippines and I was in the US, and I ended up being awake a lot at night, kind of working with this team and working really crazy hours until 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes because of the time zone overlap. I'm kind of like, why isn't there software that can just do this for me while I'm sleeping so that when I wake up, all this stuff is done? And that was kind of the original idea for Process Street. And so we started building it as a product internally, just for my company. And then we started showing it to other people and got really great feedback and ended up eventually kind of spinning it out as its own product and launched. And now we have, thousands of companies all the way up to Microsoft and Salesforce and Yale and Hospital Corporation of America, all the way down to small one-person agencies and freelancers using the product.
I love it, Vinay. And when you're talking, I see a little bit of what happened to myself when I was with Find That Lead. I was just finding a software to generate leads. Basically, are you your best customer?
Are we our best customer?
Are you your best customer? Because
internally?
Yes.
We use it a lot, but we're only 30 people in the company. And so we have big enterprises that use it with hundreds and hundreds of people. So it's difficult for us to do as much as the bigger companies, just from a scale perspective. But yeah, we use it really aggressively in all the teams. Yeah.
And this is and that sometimes is probably the best way of starting a business, which is just like basically see your problem and then try to solve it.
Yeah, scratching your own itch. It's also beneficial, like you were saying, that we do use the product. That's the fact that we're in the product all day using it to run our own business also really helps kind of feel the problems and feel the pain of our customers and solve the things that we're aligned with the problems that we want to solve with our customers, right?
Yeah, it happens very much to us in here because I do a campaign and I say, Christian, to my co-founder and say, oh man, we really need to solve this, and then we solve it. And I think this is so important if you use your own product, at least at the beginning, if you're in small and growing. And I think it's one full recommendation. Vinay, how big is the team? How do you distribute the team? It would be great if you can explain us and tell us a little bit more.
Sure. We're like 32 people now.
Ooh, congratulations, man.
Thanks. Plus, we have a team in India of another 10. So we're kind of split into 4 main teams. So product development, which is kind of engineering and product design. Marketing, which is mostly content marketing. Sales, and customer success, which is kind of support and working with our existing customers. That's kind of the main split of the organization. We have a couple of operations people that help keep things running.
That sounds amazing. One thing, what is more important, product or sales?
Well, it depends on where you're at in the business. I think that, okay, that's an interesting question. So product's always the most important because you can't sell something that's a bad product. And a product has it's the most efficient way of selling, let's call it, right? Because once the kind of product can sell itself, it doesn't really cost much. But as you grow as an organization, you start to invest more into sales and marketing than you do in product. And so I think if you look at most SaaS companies, once they get to a certain scale, there's more money spent on sales and marketing than there is on product. And so in the end, even though product is the most important, right? Like you wouldn't be able to spend all that money on sales and marketing if you don't have product market fit, because they're not going to generate a return. But as you scale as an organization, you'll find that a lot of money starts kind of at the beginning, a lot of money flows into product, but then it shifts and it starts flowing into more go-to-market.
Good. If someone is listening to us, it's like, yeah, I want to use process, but I already use Trello, Asana, or Jira. Sorry for everyone to explain why it's different and why shall I come and I use process, which I'm sure is one of the things everyone.
Sure. Yeah. So we're kind of in a different category to project management. So those are all project management products. So where our kind of enterprise category we call like business process management or workflow management. And the main differences between like a workflow and a project is that a workflow is predefined. What that means is that you already know all the steps that are going to happen before they happen. So when you're setting up a workflow, like, oh, this is how we list a new product to the e-commerce store, and it's product 1001. It's not like the first product that you're listing. Every month you take down 50 products, you put up 50 different products, and it's like a constant workflow. You know exactly the steps that are going to be taken to take down that product and put up a new one, or put up product 1001. It's predefined. You already know that. You've already done it 1,000 times. You're not inventing anything new. There's not going to be a new task that comes up. So now that that's a workflow, and an interesting kind of thing is that a project can actually turn into a workflow, and we can talk about that later. But once something is a workflow, so it's repetitive work that happens over and over again, you can predefine it. So you know this is how we're going to do it. And actually, maybe you've tested doing it 5 different ways, and you're like, oh, this is the most efficient way. And we want all the other people to constantly do it in this way that we've discovered is the most efficient way of doing it. It has the least amount of mistakes and has the highest conversion rate and gets the most customers to click on the product, or whatever things that you figured out in your testing that you want to make sure that you're continuing to follow that structure. You can build that out into a checklist, and then every time somebody comes in and needs to post a product, they can kind of follow those steps. So a project management tool, you kind of start with a blank screen, and a project is kind of unknown. So you start with a blank page, and then you're kind of, as you're going along, you're taking meetings, you're getting briefs from the clients, you're researching different technologies or whatever, and you're like throwing in new tasks, and you don't really know exactly what it's going to take to. So a project could be like launching a new product, or it could be like switching your CRM system or something like that. It's not something you do over and over again. But then actually, for example, like Intel that launches 50 products a year, that's actually a workflow for them. It's not a project. So it really depends on like your organization. And at some point you can flip from a project to a process. But for a small business, generally, that only has one product and you're launching your second product, that's probably a project. You don't really know what you're doing. You haven't done it 100 times before. You don't have a playbook for it. So that's probably a project, right? That's kind of those are two kind of good, well, that's a good way to decide whether or not you're looking for a workflow tool or a project management tool. It's kind of like, do you know what needs to get done and you just want to make sure that it gets done accurately and efficiently every time? Or is this kind of more of a creative project that is going to have unforeseen things that we don't really know that we might have to figure out along the way and adapt for and kind of merge for? Then you're probably better off in a project management tool. Now, the advantages of basically a workflow product, though, is that once you know what the steps are, so you know that this is the defined workflow. You know, every time we get a new customer, you know, sales has to send them this, customer success has to do this, the project manager has to do that, engineering has to do this, finance has to do this. And we know that every time we get a new customer, all this stuff has to get done every time. And we can predefine those steps. What that actually lets you do then is predefine automations. So because in a project, you don't know what tasks you're going to have necessarily, but in a workflow, you already know what tasks you're going to have. So you can basically build an automation that says, oh, once sales speaks to this customer, automatically send this notification to finance and automatically update QuickBooks with this. And because you know that it happens every time, you're able to start to build automations into those flows, or automatically send this email out that contains this, or automatically send out this contract and this invoice and send it for signature through our HelloSign tool or whatever. You can't predefine automations like that if you don't understand what the workflow is going to be beforehand, because if you don't know what tool you're going to be using, or if you're going to send them a contract or whatever, you got to do research. Like, you can't set up that automation. Also, if it's just something you're doing once, it's not even worth automating, right? It's only worth automating if you're doing it many times a year or a month or a week or a day or whatever, right? Otherwise, if it's just once, you're just going to waste time automating something that then never gets done again, right? So you have the ability to automate a lot more once you know that it's a workflow. You also get a lot more interesting data out of it. So once you know that something is structured and contains the same steps every time, you're able to then actually get more structured data out of that. So, okay, so we ran this 50 times in the last year. We brought in 50 new customers. You know, John took care of 10 of them. Rob took care of 10 of them. Bob took care of 10 of them. And then we can start to look at the data and say, okay, so John is getting customers done in a week. Rob is taking 2 weeks. Bob's taking 3 weeks. John's getting stuck on this step. Rob's getting stuck on this step. Bob's getting stuck here. So you can start to get all these interesting data and analytics. You can run analysis on your team. You can run analysis on the process or the workflow, try and figure out where your bottlenecks are, run tests or improvements to your process and track them over time. And you can only do that because you know that it's defined, right? If over here you're doing this one project and it's got all this random stuff, and then over here you're doing this other project and you've got 30 projects with all random different tasks, there's no way to kind of cross-analyze them properly because all the data is unstructured. So the fact that it's in a workflow lets you basically do much more systematic like optimization and analysis of your processes.
I love it, man. I think I need process just for setting up my Facebook lives, because this is going to be helping so much easier in a way.
We have tons of podcasters, webinar hosts.
Once they join in, does it actually send emails automatically?
Yeah, you can automate emails, you can make calendar invites, you can do all sorts of stuff.
Good, sounds very good. I'm going to ask Kat, which I hope is listening, who is my virtual assistant, who please check it out, because sometimes we have a nightmare. In a way, sometimes and probably you see before you automate, it could be easier to check if you can eliminate, because we try to automate things that they're actually shit. What do you think about that?
Well, that's a bit more out of the scope of the software and more around just
this is just for you. I thought to you as a personal
business design or systems design or whatever, right? So for sure, like if you don't need to do a step, it's better to eliminate it than then
The automated. I do sometimes automate shit. It's like things like, yeah, let's get some Facebook Lives, and then you tweet these and tweet that. It's like it doesn't bring us any views. It doesn't really bring us any
right.
quality.
I see what you're saying. So that's a good point. Yeah. So generally, we'd recommend not automating a process from day one. Unless like you really know it, right? So it's a different conversation to a small business to a more established business. If you're already thousands of people, you've already onboarded 10,000 customers or whatever, and like okay, look, this is like all the bullshit that we have to do, and I can, okay, look, we wasted like 300 man hours like filling out these spreadsheets for the last like 3 years. Then it's very easy. Of course, we should automate that, right? Because like we just wasted $200,000 of people typing this stuff out over the last year, and for this product that costs $10,000, then it's very obvious that you should automate it, right? But if you're kind of experimenting with new processes, so it's like a new line of business or a new marketing channel or a new kind of thing that you're doing, it's not proven. You haven't proven that this generates heaps of money or it costs you a lot of money or whatever. Then I would recommend doing it manually a number of times first, for a couple of reasons. One, you obviously want to prove that it's a valuable business activity. Like you shouldn't be doing stuff in your business that doesn't make you money or save you time, whatever. And then two, you want to make sure by doing the process yourself a number of times manually first, you actually can, you're able to optimize the process better. So by running through the process a number of times, this is what we say a lot of the times, where a lot of people will say, oh, I want to, do this new blogging like process. And then they'll be like, okay, here's a checklist. Here's a VA, go do it. And they'll expect like that the whole thing would just kind of work properly. But the thing is, without actually doing that task yourself a number of times, it's very difficult to make sure that you've thought of every single scenario, caught every condition. It's difficult to sometimes you think you explain something clearly, but when someone else reads it, it's not so clear. So go through the process a number of times yourself and running through that and then iterating on your template. We kind of call this like lean process development, or like minimum viable processes, kind of like taking from the startup methodology of the idea of you start with, we recommend customers to start with a really small, lean, simple process and then run it in production a number of times. And then as you're going through and following it, oh, let's add this screenshot here. Let's add some more instructions here. Let's add a form field here. Let's add some links, and just kind of like build it out that way. Because if you just sit in a room and try and think, how does this process work? And then try and lock yourself in a room and just kind of like write down from memory how it works for a whole day. It's quite difficult.
It's kind of explaining how to cycle. Come on, motherfucker, just take the bike and cycle instead of me explaining how to cycle, isn't it?
Right. But also a lot of process, especially like once a process gets complicated enough that you need a detailed checklist for it. Like, I don't know, like our blog post process is 60 tasks or something, right? Once a process is that detailed, it's difficult for a human to remember it, right? Like for us to get that blog post checklist perfect, we probably had to produce 30 or 40 posts, right?
That's a very good example. Tell us a little bit on how would the process helping to build a podcast or to do a blog post. And if you can share some examples to the audience, I think it would be beautiful that we see what's a perfect process from Vinay and how we can learn and how we can implement it on Process Street.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, a lot of people use it for content creation, all sorts of different stuff, but I'll give some examples of what we use it for internally. So the biggest one we use it for is in the marketing team is blog post creation. We have like process templates. We also have, we also make videos. So in the blog post, actually I might even be able to pull it up.
Please do that, man. I'm sorry to catch you in the call, but I think it would be beautiful for the audience.
No, that's good. So
and myself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the blog post template, it's called the blog post production process. So it involves a bunch of stuff. So it starts at the research phase, where we might know the topic already, and then it goes into keyword research. And so you're kind of going through, you're doing like Ahrefs, research on.
Take your time to find it, man.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
so you're doing keyword research on Ahrefs, trying to figure out, oh, here are the top 5 keywords that we could be targeting. Keyword research goes through, then you'll write the outline for the post or the draft. Then the editor. So that with different tasks in the checklist, you can assign to different people. So a whole set of tasks get assigned to like the blog author. Some get assigned to the editor. Some get assigned to the designer. Some get assigned to like our coordinator who does the scheduling. So,
and in a way, when someone finishes something, it gives like a call, like sends an email, a message, or a Slack message, whatever, and then it's like, okay, it's ready for me. I go to the same file and finish it up, edit, and then you don't have to send the emails back and forwards. This copy is shit, this picture is shit, isn't it? Before you publish it.
Exactly. So can't find it.
Don't worry. I think for anyone.
So it's like here. So we write like 10 different headlines or 5 different headlines for the post. So we have different headlines that we're reviewing. And then we have the editor will then check the draft. Make sure the draft is approved, then that gets approved and gets handed back to the writer. So we do these handoffs. A handoff will get an email. We also have a thing called inbox, so like whatever outstanding tasks are waiting for you. So you'll either get the email or you can just go to the inbox and you can see, oh, I have these, like the editor can see, oh, I have these 3 drafts that I have to review, and they can just quickly review them, and then they'll get passed back to the writers. They'll go through and they'll kind of like say, oh, can we do post enhancements? So there's things like, can we add a tweetable quote? Can we add screenshots? Can we deep link to other posts? Can we add in YouTube videos? Kind of all this type of stuff. We have a whole section on formatting. So it's like, make sure that you're using these tags and make sure you're using this header structure, check filler words, add in various links, check all the links, make sure videos are formatted in this tag, images, alt text, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole SEO section, which is like SEO description and tags and body, and make sure that the keywords in the posts many times and blah, blah, blah. There's a section for the writer, for the designer. So the designer designs the header image. So there'll be like some instructions from the author that gets handed out to the designer. The designer then creates the header image, puts that back into the process. Then you kind of come down to the end, and now you have the final post. So you have all the posts written, like the drafts being approved, the keyword research is being approved, the images are in there. It's all done, all the formatting and SEO, and then it goes back to the editor for like a final review. And then from the editor, once the editor approves it, that gets pushed back up to the writer, or it gets pushed down to the coordinator, which then in the checklist as well, we'll have details on how to write the email in like Intercom that goes out to the blog list, as well as schedule it on the post, double check all the scheduling, and then it goes out. So it's kind of like the whole end-to-end production process.
Well, Vinay just explain us how to do an amazing post, and I guess that's a good process. And for me, sometimes no, it's a nightmare to generate a process. Somehow we are from Spain, and in Spain everything is kind of like, yeah, tomorrow, let's fucking do it now. And sometimes I think it's because our culture, we are more like, I don't want to say relax, obviously we work a lot, but sometimes planification is not on my first step. It's more like action, and then, but sometimes when I'm talking now to you, I'm thinking, fuck, I should be implementing more process, and obviously if one day I'm missing, the company could not just be, or if someone is missing, the process just gone. And I think that's also an amazing thing to have. Like, processes are so important, and if you try to do everything and delegate and based on intuition, and I think he's going to do an amazing job, well, it's not scalable, isn't it?
Right. And like, so scale is the big thing, right? When you grow, keeping things or just keeping things running, like you said, if you want to remove yourself from the business. But I think generally we find that more of our customers are interested in scale and growth than kind of just not growing and keeping things the way that they are, because you tend to a lot of the problems arise when you're growing. They arise when you grow a team from 2 to 4 people, or when you grow a company from 5 to 10 people, or 10 to 50 people. That's when all the kind of systems of the company start to break down. Or it's just that the company's already scaled and they're doing things in an inefficient way, and they're trying to kind of save costs or improve productivity that way.
I was just like thinking, for example, I guess I was just thinking you have 2 types of customers, like startups or companies who use like 2 accounts, but you also said you don't have to say any names if you want, but you have customers with hundreds of accounts from process. And how do you acquire companies of hundreds accounts for anyone, even for us ourselves? It's just fucking difficult, man. Find that lead. We try to sell. Obviously, we want startups, but obviously, I want like BMW, every sales guy of using Find That Lead, and it's difficult for us. They use the free version, but they never pay. What recommendations would you give, like to Find That Lead, myself, but anyone wanting to have a company with hundreds of accounts?
I mean, we have a whole sales and marketing team of like 20 people, right? That find those leads.
Okay, that's deals. Very important to have.
So it's like everything. Yeah, we have like a content team and a blog, in a whole content library. It generates 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 views a month. We have, outbound machine doing emailing. We have, paid traffic through running AdWords, a lot of video marketing, Facebook marketing, where we've got a partner program and we have a bunch of partners running around selling for us. So it's like we got a bunch of channels running basically, right? And I think that it's at the beginning we just had the content channel. That was the one channel that we focused on at the beginning. But it's difficult to scale one channel that fast, and especially content, which is a bit of a laggard channel. But if you have 4 different teams running 4 different channels, and I want to grow those teams, it's much easier for me to add 2 people each into 4 different teams and let them learn and onboard and kind of increase the capacity of the organization by 8 people than it is for me to like add 8 writers into the content team. So when you have more channels running, actually, and you can afford to grow the channels, like it's a little bit easier to grow the organization as a whole across multiple channels than really trying to hyperscale a single channel fast. That creates, because then you just kind of end up with a bunch of people that don't know anything in that team, and you have 5 people that know what they're doing and 8 people that don't know what they're doing. And then that kind of becomes, it's quite hard for 5 people to do their job plus train like 8 new people, right? Whereas if there's 5 people that know what they're doing and 2 people come in, that's like for the next 2 or 3 months, the 5 people can still get their stuff done and they can help train the new people. And then you can do that across 4 different teams. It's easy to grow that way. And then there's also other issues scaling individual channels, right? Individual channels have various diminishing returns.
What would you say, what's the best channel to grow and what's the best channel to retention? At least for you, from your own experience.
Right. From my experience, I mean, content was the best channel, because the cool thing about content is that you can work on it before you have product market fit. So you don't need to have a perfectly polished product to start creating content, start building a following, start building domain authority. And so the cool thing about content is that you can start it really early in the company, whereas I couldn't run paid traffic for 4 years, basically, right? Because the product was not ready and it wasn't converting well enough. And so I would just be like burning all my money quickly. And obviously paid traffic costs money as well. Whereas a lot of the content marketing in the beginning was just me just writing or whatever, making videos and stuff. And so you can lose a lot of money quickly in paid traffic. Same with sales, same with partnerships. You've got to invest a bunch of money in up front. And then if the product isn't ready like those channels need to be making money. Sales needs to be a sales rep needs to make return in 3 months, right? So if they are not making money in 3 months, then you're going to quickly start burning money, right? And yeah, so content was the best, but then I don't know, like it depends, right? Like there's tons more. There are more companies that are more, at least SaaS companies. There are more companies that are more successful starting with sales than there are starting with content. So what we did is probably not the normal way. It's more, especially if you're going enterprise, it's probably more normal to start with sales. So
it's funny because on my last 4 interviews something that we don't do very well. It's content, and I think everyone's like, just do content. It's like, fuck, I'm doing it so wrong, man. I'm doing it so wrong. and listening and how you're doing, I think, and it's difficult for us. Obviously, I'm going to check to implement some process on content. And everyone listening, please implement some process on content before it's too late. Vinay, I just would like to know 2 questions. Number one is one life hack and one growth hack for personal. Well, I mean, one personal hack and one company hack that you can recommend to the group.
Personal hacks.
I can tell you one, for example, Gerard Usero here from the company. He's like he's the salesperson. He does wake up at fucking 4 o'clock. He thinks it's brilliant. I don't know if it's a life hack, but do you have any crazy hack that you do?
I do a bunch of stuff like.
Good, share it, man, share it. We like that.
So I do like, I have like morning routines. I go to the gym and I drink like a green smoothie and meditate, do a journal, so stuff like that.
Every morning?
The journal, not so much, but the other 3 I try and do. Yeah. The journal I might do 2 or 3 times a week.
Wonderful. What time do you wake up?
Oh, not early, like 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Actually, let me show you. As I'm not, the light is going to go, but I just bought it's the second one I buy. Is this slow juicer type of thing.
Oh, nice.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
This is a good one,
Yeah.
Fully recommended for anyone, guys. And
I have one of the Ninja Bullets. They're really good as well. They're kind of like Ninja Bullet things. They're kind of just like these cups that turn into smoothies.
Oh, okay.
If
you add apples and stuff like that, it kind of very very thick. And this thing.
But from what I've read, the thickness is good because that's a lot of the fiber.
It's fiber, yes. I am with you because in here you can put a whole pineapple and you get just sugars, which is amazing. It gives you like an amazing boost, but it's actually good, the bullet, which I'm going to be thinking. What about meditating?
Meditating, I use Calm, the Calm app. That's really good. And meditating's been really good. It's kind of meditation and journaling are kind of like self-awareness exercises that are useful. Some other stuff that I could tell you about is like, for example, some travel stuff. So I have a travel checklist, right? The process sheet that I run every time before I go anywhere, and it goes through making sure that I packed all the right stuff and I have all my electronics and chargers and everything, that I've turned off things in the apartment and everything's kind of ready to go. Some stuff for travel is. Do
you have like a mobile app, or it have to go to web app?
Yeah, you can use it. Well, we don't have a mobile app yet, but it's being built at the moment. But it's fully responsive, so it works really well on the phone.
Do you share templates of the process?
Yeah, you can find all those.
Okay, which I think is
inside the app. You can just go to new pre-made template and you can find them in there.
Then that's where we're going to go. And then one company hack that you think it's just amazing.
Use Profit Street.
Good, I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, and then that's a bonus one. One book that you really recommend to anyone.
One of the things that we're implementing right now is OKRs, which is like objectives and key results. And so the book that I just read around that is called Measure What Matters by John Doerr. That talks about how he took OKRs from Intel and deployed them into Google, and now like they run all of Google. it's pretty interesting.
Woohoo! I love it, man. Vinay, it's been a pleasure to have you. And please do not hang up. Thank you, everyone. Please remember to send emails with love. Thank you, Vinay from Process Street, and see you soon to everyone. Please
Thanks,
do not
everyone.
hang up. Vinay, please do not hang up and end the broadcast. This is finishing.